What we want to just kind of go into is some habits that we have control over somewhat, and some things that really can overall weaken your immune system. So going through some things here. Smoking, alcohol consumption, poor nutrition, which is the biggest thing that we're going to hit on today. Inactivity, excess stress. I know that we are not able to always control some stressors, but maybe the means of coping with them. When we do have extra stress, it can really be difficult. The way we do cope with it can affect our immune system. And then one of the biggest ones, and definitely so important that we take for granted, is inadequate rest, making sure that we are focusing on getting good rest. So we'll kind of touch on some of the things here, but really want to go into how we can keep our immune system strong. One of my favorite functional medicine physicians that I really kind of like to follow, Dr. Mark Hyman, he mentioned that it's the host that matters the most, and we are the hosts. So, the more we can control what our host is, we can keep those unfriendly viruses and different things at bay that might try to enter our bodies. So the more we keep a host that is strong and able to combat things, then we are in a much better situation to help recover and also work through some of those issues that do come up. So it's amazing to me that roughly about 90% of Americans have at least one vitamin deficiency. I would venture to say that, it is even more than that of those deficiencies. And the challenge is we tend to seek, more of what foods are convenient and easy, and therefore there are the content of nutritional benefits and different things that for our bodies is low. So the more we can focus on whole foods and different things and try to incorporate the best we can. I am not of a proponent of being perfect. I know that isn't realistic in the long-term plan for people, but the more we can make even small changes, we are going to benefit our bodies. We overall do have the control of our nutrition status. Not all things we can control. And I do understand that, but there are changes that we can always make that can make things just slightly better. So I would encourage, it is something that we do have some control over. Our GI tract and our nasal passages are kind of like the front line to where viruses enter. When we think about the GI tract starts in the mouth, and then our nasal passages as well. So I, can speak with nutrition does not involve the nasal passage, but from the GI tract standpoint, the more we can keep it happy and healthy, the better our body works. So, and that starts with what we're putting in our bodies from a food standpoint and supplement standpoint. So we'll try to see if there are some things, specific to this time of year that we can aim to consume. There is not a magic step. There's not the magic pill. And if there was, my goodness, it would be so great. But it is a work in progress, and it is something that we always have to kind of step back and evaluate and figure out what works best for us during the times that we're in. And I would encourage you to listen to your body. Poor nutrition, if you have abdominal pain, discomfort, other things that, you might speak about in relation to excess gas or belching or different things, that means your body, your GI tract just isn't working that great. So, you can speak with your clinicians or figure out some different ways, and of course the dietitian to help work through some of those things to help you improve your nutrition status. So there are a multitude of nutrients here that are beneficial to support your immune system, but I want to just kind of speak on some of the top ones. And we'll go through some different foods today that, contain a lot of these nutrients. And so, vitamin C, I've always heard of that particular one to be beneficial. Vitamin A, zinc, vitamin E, and then of course probiotics naturally that you can find in foods. And also prebiotics, I will say pre and probiotics are very important. And the reason for that is the prebiotics are kind of like the food for the probiotics. So again, it's keeping that gut health very, very happy and healthy, keeping the good bacteria in there that oftentimes can be removed related to various viruses or the use of antibiotics and different things that can mess with the gut flora. And then lastly, protein. Protein is the building blocks of the regeneration and rebuilding of our body always. So we always need good protein sources to help keep our body strong and keep our immune system strong. So fall foods, you know, what's important, I think, to focus on is foods that are in season. You are definitely going to have more use of nutrients that you can get, you know, that are very, very beneficial. So, you know, the more nutrients we have, the better we can serve our bodies and what's growing in the particular season. There are also topics, you know, and this can be for another time to discuss, but, you know, we get a lot of questions in regards to organic versus non-organic. Whatever that looks like, I will refer you to the environmental working group. It has, their website does have something called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So focusing on incorporating those options and going organic when you can on the Dirty Dozen is great. But of course, you know, getting the nutrients from fruits and vegetables is always going to be, you know, the ultimate goal and very, very beneficial. So going ahead and diving in, apples. Apples, they are incorporating the skin and all the sources here. They are very rich in fiber, which various forms of fiber are very, very good. Those are definitely some of those prebiotics or those food for the probiotics. So the more fiber we can get in our diet, the better. One thing before, I want to make sure to note that sometimes our digestive tracts versus various forms of treatment that you may have undergone are different things. These are very general recommendations. So if you have any questions related to your specific situation, please always, you know, reach out to your dietitian or to your clinicians as well to make sure that all of these things continue to be appropriate for you. But in regards to apples, you know, fiber being very beneficial, vitamin C as well. There's a variety of different kinds of apples, but all of them are going to be very rich in these nutrients. And I would encourage exploring new ways of incorporating them. Some ideas here, these are just a few, you know, baked apples. You can take your apples and you can slice them, or, you know, just kind of halfway open and bake them in the oven with some cinnamon. So you're going to increase that natural sweetness that the apples have and can be very beneficial. Other nutrients, sometimes maybe some nutmeg or other ways that you can incorporate here of some natural ways to sweeten things up. Apples with cinnamon, I have seen people even take, you know, just slice up an apple and put sprinkle some cinnamon into a bag and take those as a snack. Those can be really, really excellent too. You can make some homemade applesauce versus maybe some of your processed items that you might find at the grocery store. It can save you some money and different things. And then adding to salads, you know, they can add that nice crunch, or, you know, it can just be a nice sweetness addition to some of your options and salads there. Kale, we always hear about kale, but it is a superstar in regards to our the different plants that we can consume. It is full of nutrients, as you can see. I had to put commas between some of them because the list was so long. So vitamin A, vitamin K, B6, vitamin C, calcium, potassium, copper, manganese, all of these various nutrients. And so they are so beneficial and can be incorporated in a variety of things. You know, again, salads, you know, but you don't always have to have it on a cold salad, you know, even mixing it with some quinoa or some different things here. You'll see in this picture, that's that pomegranate, you know, and being one of the good nutritious fall foods here. Also kale chips, you know, you can make your own, which I'm going to refer you to a recipe that's on our cancercenter.com website here in a little while. But making your own version, you can sprinkle different spices, different things on there to give it more of the flavors that you might prefer. It can be purchased too. I do always kind of make sure that when you are purchasing some of those sorts of items to make sure you're keeping an eye on the ingredient list, just so there's not a lot of extra good ingredients that we don't really care for. And then incorporating it into smoothies. This, you know, definitely is something that we've got to play with just a little bit in regards to flavor. It does have a bit of a bitter taste, but you can make some, I have heard a lot of use of banana or apple, again, when you are using kale in a smoothie.
Jasmine, I have a question while you're on that slide that others might want to know. When you go to the grocery store, there's lots of different versions of kale. Is there one that's better than the other, or are they all created equal?
I think they're all, you know, definitely going to have that nutrient content that is going to be beneficial. So I believe that all of them are going to be great. It kind of comes down to a preference in regards to your palate and taste and kind of what you like, because there's always going to be small differences there. And so you kind of play with that. But as far as nutrient density, they are high on the list. So definitely incorporating those is going to be great.
I have a quick, can you hear me?
Sure, we can hear you. We can hear you.
I want to know with the chips, the kale chips, can they be done in the air fryer? You know, they have I just bought a new air fryer and it has a dehydrating basket or something with it.
Sure.
Is that the way
I mean, I believe that you definitely could. I haven't seen recipes specifically for that, but because the air fryer is, you know, a newer sort of device to cook things in, but absolutely. I think that would be fantastic, and I would give it a try, and I'm sure there's some recipes out there now noting that, and definitely let us know.
Okay.
Yeah, keep us posted.
We gotta see it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then you can share them with all of us. That would be great. So yeah, I would try it for sure. All right, we ready to move on to the next one? Pumpkin. So pumpkin is, you know, an excellent dish, you know, or an excellent item to cook with in the fall months. I have, you know, there are a lot of people that will get their own and take the seeds out, even cook the seeds, roast the seeds, which is great. There's a lot of zinc in those, which is very beneficial. We recommend those a lot for patients that have had challenges with taste changes. So that it's kind of a 2-for-1 in relation to pumpkins. And then certainly just kind of the part, or what one might call like the meat of the pumpkin, is where you're going to get vitamin C, vitamin A, B6, potassium, and then of course the great fiber. I have seen recipes with just pumpkin, and you just mix some, and this can be, so again, you can get the canned pumpkin, you're still going to get a lot of good benefits from that. Again, just make sure that looking at the ingredients there, that they didn't add a bunch of other things to preserve it, if you can. But you can do just regular oats with and it makes just a delicious pancake. So very easy to do. And then also you can make some various muffins in relation to pumpkin. You know, and they can be hearty. You can add some chia seeds for some additional omega-3 sources, and then also maybe some ground flaxseed or something like that. So these are just a couple ideas, but I know there's a lot of other recipes and opportunities out there. These are some things that I have found that even for kids and grandkids and different things like that, that you can incorporate to be delicious. Garlic. It is been known to be a natural antibiotic, so very, very beneficial for the GI tract, and good for overall health. I know that sometimes people's GI tracts don't always agree with garlic, so you've got to kind of tailor that to what works for you. But it is excellent and a great source of potassium, magnesium, and also one of the sulfur-containing foods, which is very good for the liver. So, you know, ideas for use, I kind of put on here everywhere. You know, there's so many great ways to incorporate it, whether you're adding it to sauces, whether, you know, one of my favorite things to roast is broccoli, and I put, you know, just a good old heaping of some garlic in with the broccoli and roast it in the oven. You know, playing with different ideas there, and roasting, you know, other vegetables always go great with garlic. So I highly recommend aiming to incorporate garlic into your diet if it does, you know, of course, agree with you. Sweet potatoes. They have been around and been just an excellent alternative to some of your white potatoes that don't have necessarily as much fiber, but in also nutrient density. Your white potatoes still do have some nutrients in them, but your sweet potatoes are just so great, rich in vitamin A, vitamin C, manganese, and of course fiber. One of my favorite ways to consume them is just roasting them, slicing them up, you know, in different ways. You could even make sweet potato fries, you know, and again, that going back to, and I apologize, I didn't catch the name of who brought that up, but the air fryer might be a great way to incorporate and use of your sweet potatoes. Also, just cooking them in the oven whole is great. Sometimes we can get carried away, but so be careful with the additions that we add to the sweet potatoes that can kind of take it where it, you know, can become not the healthiest of items, but you know, you're still going to get the nutrients there. And then I have seen even where people have taken and made these zoodles, where they is an alternative to your white flour processed noodles. You can add those in. There are some that are already done for you at the store. So sometimes, you know, making zoodles does require a little bit more work to prepare those. So I've always sometimes suggested to consider, you know, kind of seeing what you can find at the store that might help you to give things a try before you do put in that extra effort, so you don't feel upset that you put in all the time and you don't like something. So, but you might find that there's a variety of different ways that you like to incorporate. You'll see in this picture here, there's some various meats in there. There's some Brussels sprouts. You know, you can just kind of make a montage. There's some rosemary on there to add some additional flavor. So it can be a great kind of one I'll put your meal all together kind of dish, you know, that can enhance those different things. And cranberries. Cranberries are very rich in fiber and then polyphenols, which are an antioxidant. So it's getting rid of some of that oxidative stress that we might have encountered or have put on our body. So incorporating them is great. They do have that tart flavor. So unfortunately, sometimes a lot of recipes will require adding a lot of additional simple sugars to them to make them taste good. But I would challenge you to play with adding them to some of your, you know, heartier options, you know, whether it's, you know, making various, sometimes people will just blend them up and kind of add a little bit of different things to make like a dressing. You can do it as a natural sweetening in some of your breads or some muffins or different things that can be great. Adding them just on top of a salad, I didn't have that noted here, but is an excellent option to incorporate. So cranberries, which is awesome. Okay. And then going into, so those are our foods here. So I want to just kind of come back and make sure to note, you know, some other things that we had on that list that are just overall and very important for our immune system. So natural and supplemental forms of vitamin D are very beneficial. There is some literature to note that adequate vitamin D levels does reduce your risk of the flu by 40%. So, and I'm speaking of the flu, you know, I know we don't have a lot of literature to come up with adequate vitamin D levels and, you know, say what we're going through right now with COVID and different things. We don't have the literature for that. But we do know that keeping your immune system strong is very important during these times with these additional viruses that are coming up. I don't have a recommendation for supplements because for dosing in that, because I think it is very important that you have your level checked. A goal between 40 to 60 is very good. You might even have clinicians say upwards of 80 can be good too, but I think that you know, that 40 to 60 range is a good range to maintain. Going into winter months, sometimes your clinicians may recommend an increase slightly in your dose of your vitamin D. And the reason is because we're not getting as much natural sunlight, or if we are outside, we're primarily more covered up with clothing, so that natural synthesis of the vitamin D through our skin is potentially not happening. So just kind of making sure to reach out to your clinicians or look at some of those supplements that can be beneficial. Sleep is the only way that our bodies can essentially recover. So the goal is 7 to 9 hours per day or per night, essentially, or whenever your version of night is. Some people work nights, remember that. But do listen to your body. Allow your body to rest. Sometimes if your body is telling you you need more rest, maybe it's underlying way that it is fighting off something that we just don't know about. So taking that time, making sure you are getting good rest. If rest is not good for you, you know, we need to figure out why that's happening. Is it related to medications? Is it related to, you know, stressors or different things? But figuring out how we can help at CTCA work with you to improve that somewhat is going to be very important. Because we have multiple team members, you know, we have our mind body medicine department, you know, again, your physicians in relation to medications, and our naturopathic physicians too, that can potentially help work through some of those things for you. And then activity. Your goal, you know, a good goal is, you know, 150 minutes per week, which is roughly about 30 minutes, 5 days a week. I always want to encourage people to find something you enjoy. You know, and also making sure that you are reaching out to your physicians and your physical therapists and occupational therapists as to what's safe for you to do is also very important. But, you know, doing the same thing every day is, you know, can allow us to get a little bit burnout on activity. But finding something that you enjoy, turning up some good music, dancing around, whatever it might be, but the more we're moving, it is overall very, very beneficial for our immune health. And then I want to just note, just say no to sugar. And by sugar, I don't mean all forms of sugar, but I mean your simple sugars, your white flour, white sugar, candies, soda pops. You know, when I say white flour, white sugar, I feel like that is a definition from about November to January. You know, it's all of the things that we tend to incorporate during that particular time. So being conscious of where those simple sugars are coming in, and I would say, as it says here, you are sweet enough already. We don't need all the extras, but it does cause some inflammation in the body, and it can cause that inadequate weight gain, which one of the things for in general is aiming to achieve and maintain that healthy body weight the best we can, is very beneficial for overall good cancer fighting. So we're always aiming to incorporate and aim to limit. I'm a realist. Eliminating can be very difficult and not necessarily long-term something we can maintain, but the more we can limit, the better. And, you know, I encourage people to enjoy the process of changing, you know, the way, maybe incorporating new and different things. You know, some ideas that we often give to patients is spend, you know, 30 minutes to an hour each week to kind of spend some time, whether it's prepping or planning some of your meals and snacks. Maybe you try one new recipe a week. It all just kind of depends on what you're able to do and enjoy doing it, you know, whatever that tends to look like for you. And we're always happy to provide some other ideas in that regard. I always encourage people to maybe consider some new traditions or recipes with, you know, gatherings are definitely going to be different this year. But, you know, if sweet potatoes are always something that you incorporate, maybe roasting them with a dish is going to be something that you might do a little bit more versus the sour cream filled goodness that I know we all definitely enjoy.
Marshmallows.
Yes. All of those different things that are there. And I also encourage you to involve your family, you know, whether it is involving kids or grandkids in cooking and prepping and incorporating that, but it becomes just such joyful. A lot of our social gatherings and joy is surrounded by food, but we do want to make it a healthy and enjoyable thing. So I would love to kind of take you over now to, and I'm going to have to play with this here to these websites. So bear with me here.
Go for it. And then after you do that, then I'll start reading a couple questions we look like we have in the chat. So if you guys have questions and want to type them in there while she's pulling that up, feel free to do that, and Chance and I will help to make sure all these get answered. Or after we go through that, if you're welcome to unmute yourself in a while after I tell you and ask the question that way. So
okay. Are you seeing this website, the cancercenter.com website?
We are not. We're still seeing your presentation.
Okay, new share. Maybe that's what I do. Okay. How about now?
There it is, yes.
Okay, so I will say you can go to cancercenter.com here, and then you will see that there is an option for recipes. So, which is really great. And they've got 4 different pages of recipes on here, which is good. But look at this, baked kale chips. All right.
There it is.
Dude, I didn't even plan that. It was already there. It was already there. So there's a bunch of different great recipes in here. I feel as though, and I don't remember what page as I was scrolling through these here, there was an apple and kale salad on here too. But there's all sorts of really great recipes, as complicated or as simple as you might want. None of them are very complicated at all, but just giving you some ideas there is good. And then also, do you see this one? Is this American Institute of Cancer Research? Is it up for you right now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. So you can go to resources and then resources for, and then families and children, I believe is where let me make sure. I might have to go back. I apologize if I. So there are family-friendly recipes here, recipes for kids. So again, good nutrition for you is good nutrition for them too. So I always encourage, you know, kind of playing with that. And then also there is the resources for caregivers. And you will see down here, there are even recipes too. And what I really love about American Institute of Cancer Research as well is that they will often, a lot of their recipes will incorporate, as you can see here, like fall vegetables. Like they will incorporate what's in season, which is nice. But they even categorize appetizers, entrees, beverages and drinks, different things here where you can get some ideas for making new recipes. So that is kind of, let's see here, and sure, go back to this. And as we say in Oklahoma, happy fall, y'all.